Okay, so I'll share the link. So at least for few weeks, the link will be the same every day. So I'm sharing the link. So we are following this link where all the labs are given. So today, so few labs are remaining for us, that is 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 and 1.9, that we will do later. Okay, first we need to cover something else, then we'll get back to these exercises. So till 1.5 we have done. Okay, so those who have missed the classes, they will have to do this, but this is all about login to the AWS and enabling multi-factor authentication and all. Okay, today we'll start this EC2 lab, that is lab 2.1. So today we'll be creating a VM or an EC2 instance in AWS. So log into your console and type EC2. Okay, so this is one of the method to find our service. Okay, there are some other methods as well. As of now we'll just see this one. Always search for it and just click on EC2. So we are now on a EC2 dashboard. Okay, so if you see here, there are multiple options available. Okay, so EC2 is a region specific service. Okay, there are some services which are global, so what are those, we'll see that later. Okay, but EC2 is region specific. When you are on the EC2 dashboard, always try to check on in which region you are. Okay, as of now I would suggest don't change this region. Okay, if you want to, you can do it later, but as of now work in a default region. For most of us, the region will be US East 1. Okay, so if you see, it is giving some details. Okay, so the instance is running 0. Okay, what are auto scaling groups, elastic IPs and all, we'll see all these things later. Okay, but if you see, there is a security group. By default there will be a default security group. Okay, so what is security group? It has some rules which tells which port we can access for a particular instance. Okay, so again I'll go to EC2 dashboard. So instance is running 0. Okay, so security group is 1, and I created some key pairs. Okay, you will also create some key pairs. So the key pairs are very important. And so if you see, just now we learned about spot instance, saving plans, reserved instances, dedicated host, and then now they have now come up with something called capacity reservation. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just again go back to the EC2 dashboard. Okay, and click on launch instance. Now we'll give any name to it. Okay, let's follow the exercise. Okay, in exercise it's better to follow the exercise because we won't miss anything. I'm giving the name web server, and we can choose any OS. Okay, but as of now for this exercise we'll choose Ubuntu as an OS. Okay, and it is recommended not to use the latest version, but a one version to previous to the latest version. So we will use Ubuntu 22. Okay, so the everyone will get this pop-up. Just click on confirm changes. Okay, so we are installing Ubuntu 22 OS. Okay, and remember it should be free tier eligible. Okay, so in free tier eligible, what we will get, we'll get 750 hours of T2 micro. Okay, so next one we'll be searching what is the instance type. Okay, there are various type of instance types, like based on the CPU and RAM. Okay, one CPU, 1 GB RAM, T2 micro. Then we also have a T2 nano which has only 0.5 memory, 5 GB of memory, but we should always use the instances which are free tier eligible. Okay, so there are various types of instance types. C5 large which has 5 CPUs and 36 CPUs and 72 GB memory. So as of now, we are using the default one, that is free tier eligible T2 micro. Now I already have a key pair, so I can use it. Okay, my key pair. So most of the times we either will create a new key pair, okay, or we'll use an existing one. It is up to you. As this is our first exercise, we need a key pair. So why we need a key pair? Because on our laptop, okay, we log in with username and password, okay, but in a cloud environment, by default the username and password login is disabled. We need to log in via key. Okay, so we'll be creating a key, okay, and we'll just give a name to it, my key pair. Okay, so I'm giving it as an my key pair one, as I already have. Okay, so choose the default option RSA, and here do not choose .pem, as most of us are having a Windows OS, the from which we are learning or doing this exercise. So choose .ppk, okay, for putty, and click on create key pair. So what are these key pairs? I'll explain it shortly, but we'll be having some exercises later on as well to understand it more. So when we click on this key pair, it will create a private key and a public key. Okay, and the private key, it will give it to us when I click on create key pair. Okay, it will create both the keys. Okay, one key, that is private key, it will ask us to download. Okay, that private key will be with us. Okay, and due to the combination of private key and public key, we try to log in. Okay, so there is a lot of theory behind it, but as of now, just remember that two keys are created. One is public key. This public key will be created and added to the EC2 instance or a VM which we are creating. Okay, in a particular file, I'll tell you which file in terms of Linux, and the private key will be downloaded, and it should be with us only. Okay, only using the combination of these keys we'll be able to log in. Okay, suppose we created one more key pair, that is private key and public key, and if we try to use it on a system for which it was not created, it will not work. Okay, so for each EC2 instance, the key combination should be the same. So I'm just clicking on creating key pair. If you have a base OS, my base OS is Windows, from which I'm doing everything. So that's why I'm using .ppk for using with the putty. And if you have a Linux machine, okay, only from Linux machine to Linux machine SSH will be using .pem. Okay, so we'll also see with the pem as well. Okay, so I'm creating a key pair. Okay, so when I create a key pair, it is asking me to save it. The key pair, that is the private key. Okay, I'll go to the desktop and I'll save it. Okay, so if you see, my key pair is created. Now the network setting. Okay, so in network setting, we have to define the VPC. Okay, so we have a separate section for VPC, for learning VPC, what is VPC, what is subnet and all. Okay, so every VM will be part of a particular virtual private cloud. Okay, so as of now we'll be using the default one. Okay, so VPC will be default, subnet will be default, and every VM will have a private IP and a public IP. The private IP is for communicating within the VPC, okay, whatever VPC will create, and public IP will be for the outside world. So everything we are in this exercise, we are choosing the default one. But if you go to the edit settings, okay, so if you see the default VPC, as of now we do not have any other VPC, so it is using default VPC. But we can also give a subnet preference, where we want our uh, EC2 instance to be placed. Okay, Should it be in the availability zone 1C, 1E, 1F or anything? But as of now, we won't give preference. It will automatically place it in any availability zone. Okay, so it should be enabled. This is by default enabled. Okay, otherwise we won't be able to access it over the SSH. So the auto assign public IP is enabled. Don't make it disable. We'll be having an exercise where we'll be disabling it, and we are also creating a security group also called as firewall. Okay, so we'll create a new security group like the key pair. We created a new key pair, but in future we may use the same key pair again and again. Similarly, we can use the create a new security group or select an existing one. Okay, so most of the times we'll be creating the new security group only. So what is a security group? It is a firewall where we define which port should be allowed. Okay, so what I'll do is okay, I've clicked on edit, so I'm getting more options. Okay, so we by default we allowed SSH. Okay, and other ports are not allowed, and these are allowed from everywhere. 0.0.0 means allowed from everywhere. So all the options I'm keeping at as default. Okay, then what should be the disk size? Okay, the root volume means where the everything will be installed. That is the root volume. So let's keep it as 8 GB also, or we can use 30 GB. It is up to us. Okay, so free tier eligible is up to 30 GB. I'm using 30 GB. If you want one more disk to be attached to this VM, we can click on add volume and we can attach it. Okay, so for EFS we are not attaching any UFS, and for advanced details also there are some, we can choose some other options as well, but as of now we are not choosing anything. But let me go through this whatever we have defined. So we created a key pair. Okay, so I'm also allowing the traffic from HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, but for some time we'll skip it, we'll do it later. Okay, we selected the disk size of 30 GB just now. Okay, we are creating a one instance. Okay, just click on launch instance. Okay, so what are the options which I have chosen? The only thing is we created Ubuntu 22 OS. Okay, then T2 micro. Okay, the free tier eligible instance type, we created a new key pair. Okay, and the private key was downloaded when we created the key pair. We are using the default VPC, default subnet, and by default, and automatically a public IP will be assigned. We are creating a new security group, but we can also select an existing one. In security group, as of now, I have allowed SSH only. Okay, I haven't allowed port 80 and 443, that is HTTP and HTTPS. And just click on launch instance. Okay, so if you see in the instance is launched. Okay, it will be read in some time, but it has given a public IP. It is created in US East 1A availability zone. So in some time it will also show us the private IP. Okay, so it is running. So web server is the name. Okay, some instance ID is given to it. Okay, instance state is in running. Instance type is T2 micro. Okay, okay, so what I did is for you it will look a bit different. So I disabled the public IP. I can disable means I cannot see it, the view I have disabled. So we can enable this private IP, private DNS, security group IDs, whatever we want to see by default. On the screen there are various options, so we can go to this edit option and confirm it. So if you see now, the private IP DNS name, it gives a random DNS name to it, and this is the private IP. Okay, so we cannot access this private IP. Private IPs mean it is private to the particular VPC, and it also has a public IP. This is the public IP. Okay, now there are various ways to connect to this EC2 instance. We have created it. Now we want to connect to it. But what I'll do is I'll just remove the things which I don't want. Okay, so this is my public IP. This is my private IP. Now click on it. Okay, click on this web server, and there are various options to connect to it. So first option would be just click on connect. Okay, so here the various options are given. Okay, so by default EC2 instance connect. Okay, so it is giving a warning that port 22 is open to all IP addresses. Generally we should allow it only from a specific network range, okay, in which we are. Okay, that's why it is giving a warning. Now this is the public IP address, and for Ubuntu it will give us the username from by via which we should log in. So it created an instance. Okay, it created the Ubuntu username as it is an Ubuntu. For other OS it will be different. So just go to EC2 instance always and check what is the username, the default username for your OS. We don't know, right? For the first time we won't be knowing. So the other method is session manager, then SSH client also, and EC2 serial console we can get, but EC2 instance connect and SSH client will see it today. So EC2 instance connect, it is just click on connect. Okay, when we click on connect, we'll get an SSH connection inside the browser itself. Okay, so we are connected to the instance. Okay, so we can check what is the OS release. We installed Ubuntu 22. It is showing it to us. Okay, I'll close it. Now I can work on it in the browser itself. Okay, but in the production environment this option may not be available. Okay, so we need to log in via other method. So let's click on it and click on connect. So if you see, there is an option called SSH client. Okay, so SSH client, most of the times we use it as a putty. Okay, and if we are logging in from a Linux machine, if already have a Linux machine, then we should have chosen .pem. In this case we have chosen .ppk. So here the example is given for a SSH from a Linux machine. Okay, not from a Windows machine. So I'll we'll see this option later. Now we'll see how to connect it using a putty. So you can go to the putty, you can download it if you do not have. Okay, just use the first option. After downloading it you'll get a something like this. Okay, so this is the putty config UI. Okay, here what we will do, first take the public IP. This is our public IP. We need to connect to it. Okay, and also save it, but just copy it, don't save it. Okay, this is in the sessions tab. Okay, in session tab I've added the public IP here, and port number is 22 via which we will connect. Then go to the connection. Okay, in SSH, in auth credentials. Okay, remember connection, SSH, auth, credential. Here you should browse to the private key file which we downloaded. Okay, and I saved it in the desktop. This is my key pair 1.ppk. Just click on open. So we are saying that use this private key at the time of establishing an SSH connection. But remember, this private key is only for this EC2 instance. Suppose you created one more EC2 instance and created another key pair, then this key pair will not work. So most of the times you will get confused. So remember which key pair you created and name it properly. Okay. So just don't click on open now. Okay. Go back to the session again. Okay. And first save it. Okay. So these settings you don't have to do again and again. Only the IP address you can change later on. How I'll tell you. So just browse it to the key pair. Okay. Where connection SSH auth credentials in session, type your IP address in saved session, also type your IP address and just click on save. Now this session is saved. So this setting you don't have to do again and again. Just click on now open. When we click on open, if you get something like this, just accept it, and that means your connection is working fine. And here, if you get confused which username to use, again go back to connect and check. It will show it is Ubuntu, and press enter. So we are connected. This is the other method to connect to the EC2 instance. Okay, so that's it for this EC2 exercise. Okay,